Jake Morrison checked his weapon for the third time that hour. The plasma pistol felt wrong in his hands, too light and too smooth. He missed his old service pistol, the one that kicked when you fired it and made a sound you could feel in your chest. But Ambassador Hayes had been clear. They were guests of the Viridian Empire, and they would carry Viridian weapons to show respect. The diplomatic vessel Horizon hung in orbit above the Viridian homeworld, a planet that made Earth look young and rough. Below them, crystal towers reached into purple skies, and cities sprawled across continents that had known civilization for 10,000 years. The Viridians had been traveling between stars when humans were still figuring out agriculture. Jake stood in the shuttle bay with the rest of the security team. Lisa Chen was adjusting her formal uniform, trying to get the collar to sit right. Kevin Park looked calm, but Jake had worked with him long enough to see the tension in his shoulders. They all knew what this mission meant. Humanity was barely 50 years into space travel. Most alien races treated them like children playing dress-up. Cute, but not really important. Remember, Ambassador Hayes said as he walked down the line, we are here to establish a trade agreement. Nothing more. The Viridians are doing us a favor by even meeting with us, so we smile, we follow their rules, and we do not cause problems. Jake nodded along with the others. Hayes was a good man, smart and careful. He had spent his whole career building bridges between humanity and the older races. This meeting with the Viridians could open doors that had been closed since humans first left Earth. The shuttle ride down was smooth. Viridian technology made human ships feel like toys. They landed in a courtyard made of white stone that seemed to glow with its own light. Servants in flowing robes waited to guide them, their faces polite but distant. Jake fell into step behind the ambassador, his eyes scanning the area out of habit. The palace was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Everything was perfect. From the carved pillars to the fountains that played music as water fell. Jake felt out of place in his plain uniform, like a smudge on a painting. The Viridian guards they passed wore armor that looked like art, carrying weapons that probably cost more than Jake made in a year. They were led to a grand hall where the reception would take place. Hundreds of aliens filled the space, most of them Viridian nobles in clothes that shimmered and changed color. A few other species mingled in the crowd, representatives from other worlds. Jake recognized a few. The tall, gray-skinned Krell who ran most of the galaxy's banking. A group of Thaxian merchants with their forearms and clicking mandibles. None of them looked at the human delegation with much interest. Stay alert, Jake told Lisa and Kevin quietly. Something feels off. Lisa frowned. Off how? Jake shook his head. He could not explain it. The security looked good on the surface. Viridian royal guards stood at every entrance, their armor gleaming, but there were gaps, little spaces where someone could move without being watched. The guards were confident, maybe too confident. They thought their palace was safe because it had always been safe. The royal family entered through a set of doors that opened without anyone touching them. The crowd went quiet. Queen Mother Sunhee walked at the front, old but moving with grace that made age look like strength. Behind her came 3 younger Viridians, each wearing crowns that floated above their heads without any visible support. The princess in the middle caught Jake's eye. She was tall and slim, her skin a shade of blue that reminded him of Earth's oceans. Her dark hair was pulled back, and her eyes were large and golden. She wore a dress that seemed to be made of liquid silver, and she moved like she was dancing even when she was just walking. That is Princess Mincio, Hayes whispered. Third in line to the throne. Be respectful if she speaks to you. The reception began. Ambassadors from different worlds approached the Queen Mother, offering greetings and gifts. When it was Hayes' turn, he bowed low and presented a case containing samples of Earth's art and music. The Queen Mother accepted it with a slight nod, her expression giving nothing away. Jake watched the crowd while Hayes made small talk with various nobles. Most of the attention was on the ambassador, which was fine. That was Jake's job. To be invisible until he was needed. He tracked the movements of the Viridian guards, noting their positions and patterns. He watched the servants moving through the crowd with trays of food and drink. That was when he saw them, 3 Viridians in servant robes, But they moved wrong. Their steps were too precise, too controlled. Servants learned to fade into the background. But these three moved like soldiers trying to look casual. Jake's hand drifted toward his weapon. One of them reached into his robes. Jake saw the shape of what he pulled out. Something small and angular. A weapon. Time seemed to slow down as the man raised it, aiming across the room. Jake followed the line of sight and felt his stomach drop. The weapon was pointed at Princess Mincio. Jake ran. He did not think about protocol, or politics, or the fact that he was a human security officer in an alien palace. He just ran. The princess was talking to a group of nobles, smiling at something one of them said. She did not see the danger. The Viridian guards were looking the wrong way, watching the outer doors instead of the crowd inside. The first shot came just as Jake reached the princess. He did not try to draw his own weapon. There was no time. He wrapped his arms around her and pulled her down, twisting his body to put himself between her and the shooters. They hit the floor hard, Jake taking most of the impact. Heat washed over his back as plasma fire cut through the air above them. Someone screamed. The beautiful hall erupted into chaos as guests scattered in every direction. Jake rolled, keeping the princess covered with his body, and yanked his weapon from its holster. The three assassins were firing into the crowd now, cutting down guards and nobles alike. Their weapons made sharp cracking sounds, and the smell of ozone and burned flesh filled the air. Jake aimed carefully and fired. The plasma pistol made almost no noise, just a soft hum and a flash of light. His first shot took the nearest assassin in the chest, dropping him instantly. The other two turned toward him. Jake fired again, missing as one of them dove behind a pillar. The third assassin got a shot off, and Jake felt fire along his left shoulder. Pain exploded through him, but he kept his body over the princess and returned fire. His second shot caught the assassin in the leg, sending him spinning to the ground. The last assassin was taking aim when the Viridian Royal Guard finally reacted. A dozen guards opened fire at once, and the assassin disappeared in a burst of light and heat. The hall went quiet except for the moaning of the wounded. Jake stayed where he was, covering the princess, his weapon trained on the spot where the last assassin had been. His shoulder burned, and he could smell his own skin cooking, but he did not move. "You can get off me now," a voice said beneath him. The voice was musical but strained, speaking English with a strange accent. Jake looked down and realized he was lying on top of an alien princess, bleeding on her silver dress. He scrambled off her, wincing as the movement pulled at his burned shoulder. Princess Minseo sat up slowly. Her golden eyes were wide, and her face showed shock. She looked at Jake like she had never seen anything like him before. "You are human," she said. It was not a question. "Yes, Your Highness," Jake managed. His shoulder was screaming at him now, and the room was starting to spin a little. "You saved my life." She still sounded surprised, like the idea did not make sense to her. "It is my job, Your Highness." Jake tried to stand and nearly fell. Strong hands caught him. Kevin and Lisa were there, along with a dozen Viridian guards. The princess stood as well, servants rushing to help her even though she was not hurt. She stared at Jake as medical teams swarmed around them. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you risk your life for mine?" Jake did not understand the question. "Because you needed help," he said. Then the pain and the shock caught up with him, and the world went dark. Jake woke up in a bed that was too soft and too big. The ceiling above him was white and smooth, with lights that glowed without any visible source. For a moment, he had no idea where he was. Then, the memories came back. The attack. The princess. The burning pain in his shoulder. He sat up quickly and immediately regretted it. His head spun and his stomach lurched. But the pain in his shoulder was gone. He reached up and felt smooth skin where the plasma burn should have been. Not even a scar. "You should rest," a voice said. Jake turned to see a Viridian in white robes standing near the door. "The healing technology works fast, but your body still needs time to adjust." Where am I? Jake asked. The Royal Medical Wing, the Viridian said. You have been unconscious for 6 hours. Your wound has been completely healed. Jake looked around the room. It was bigger than his quarters on the horizon. The walls showed scenes of Viridian landscapes, oceans, and mountains that moved like they were alive. A window looked out over the palace gardens. I need to speak with Ambassador Hayes, Jake said. The ambassador is here. Hayes walked into the room, and Jake had never seen him look so worried. How are you feeling? Fine. The shoulder is healed. What happened? Did they catch all the assassins? Hayes sat down in a chair that seemed to grow out of the floor. They caught the ones who survived. You killed one, wounded another. The third was killed by the Royal Guard. He paused. Jake, we have a problem. What kind of problem? The kind that involves ancient laws and royal customs that nobody has invoked in centuries. Hayes rubbed his face. You saved Princess Mincio's life. That was my job. No, you do not understand. You did not just protect her. You put yourself between her and certain death. You were willing to die for her. In Viridian culture, that creates something called a life debt. Jake frowned. So she owes me? I do not want anything. I was just doing what anyone would do. That is the problem. In Viridian law, when someone saves a royal's life at the risk of their own, the debt can only be settled one way. The royal must offer the savior a place in their household, a permanent place. The words took a moment to sink in. You mean like a job? More than that. It is called bonding. The person who saved them becomes part of the royal family, bound by law and custom. For a princess of the blood, this is no small thing. Hayes leaned forward. Jake, half the Viridian High Council wants to pretend this never happened. They want to give you a medal, say thank you, and send us home. But the other half insists the law must be followed. What does the princess think? I have not spoken to her directly. But from what I hear, she is conflicted. She is grateful you saved her life. But accepting a human into the royal household would be unprecedented. Most Viridians still see us as primitives who just learned to use fire. Before Jake could respond, the door opened again. Princess Mincio walked in, and everyone immediately stood. She was wearing simpler clothes now, a long dress of deep blue. But she still moved with that same grace, Jake remembered. Ambassador Hayes, she said, I need to speak with your officer alone. Hayes looked at Jake, who nodded. The ambassador left with the medical attendant, closing the door behind them. The princess stood there for a long moment, just looking at Jake. Her golden eyes were hard to read. Do you know why I am here? She finally asked. The ambassador mentioned something about a life debt. It is more complicated than that. She walked to the window, looking out at the gardens. My people have rules for everything. How to speak, how to walk, how to greet each sunrise. These rules have kept our civilization stable for 10,000 years. One of those rules states that when a royal's life is saved at mortal risk, a bond must be offered. I do not want to cause problems, Jake said. You already have. She turned to look at him. Half my court believes you did this on purpose, that you planned this to gain power and status. The other half thinks I should ignore the law because you are human, and therefore beneath such considerations. What do you think? The question seemed to surprise her. I watched the security recordings. You moved without thinking. You saw danger, and you acted. That kind of instinct cannot be faked. She walked closer to him. Why did you do it? Because you were in danger, but you did not know me. I am not your queen or your commander. I am from a species that has treated humanity with barely concealed contempt since your ships first entered our space. Why risk your life for me? Jake thought about it. Where I come from, we have a saying. If you can help someone, you should. It does not matter who they are or where they come from. You needed help. So I helped. Minso stared at him like he was speaking a language she did not know. That simple? That simple. She sat down on the edge of his bed, which seemed to shock her as much as it shocked Jake. Viridian royalty probably did not sit on beds with security officers. I am required by law to offer you a place in my household. The bonding ceremony would make you my sworn protector. You would live here, in the palace, and your duty would be to me and my family above all others. And if I say no, then I am released from the debt. Life continues as normal. You return to your ship, and I continue my duties. No one would blame you. Accepting would mean leaving your people, your ship, everything you know. Jake thought about the horizon. He thought about Lisa and Kevin, about Hayes and the crew. He thought about Earth and the life he had built in the security service. Then he thought about the princess standing in that grand hall, unaware of the danger, and how close she had come to dying. If I accept, what happens? Minseo looked surprised again. You would truly consider it? You saved my life with your medicine. Your doctor said that plasma burn would have killed me without treatment. So maybe we are, even in a way. He met her eyes. If your law says, this is what should happen, then I will honor it. You do not understand what you would be giving up. Maybe not. But I understand what happens when people ignore laws just because they are inconvenient. Laws either matter, or they do not. The princess stood and walked back to the window. She was quiet for so long that Jake thought maybe she had decided to refuse him. Then she spoke. So softly he almost did not hear it. The bonding ceremony will take place in 3 days. You will need to learn our customs and protocols. I will assign someone to teach you. She turned to face him. I do not know if this is wise, but you are right. Our laws must mean something, or they mean nothing. She left without another word. Jake sat on the bed, wondering what he had just agreed to. The next 2 days were a blur. A Viridian noble named Tarvel arrived to teach Jake the proper way to behave in the royal court. Tarvel made it clear from the start that he thought this entire situation was ridiculous. A human, he said with disgust. Bonded to a princess of the blood. It is unnatural. Jake learned to bow correctly, how to address different ranks of nobility, and dozens of other rules that seemed designed to make simple things complicated. He practiced until his back hurt from bowing and his head spun from trying to remember who was who. Lisa and Kevin visited when they could. You are really going through with this? Lisa asked. Seems like it. The whole ship is talking about it. Some people think you are crazy. Others think you are a hero. What do you think? Lisa smiled. I think you did what you always do. You saw someone who needed help and you helped them. Everything else is just noise. On the 3rd day, Jake stood in a ceremonial chamber wearing robes that felt strange on his skin. The room was filled with Viridian nobles, all watching him with expressions ranging from curiosity to contempt. Ambassador Hayes stood to one side with the human delegation. Jake could see the worry on his face. Princess Minseo entered wearing a crown that caught the light and split it into rainbows. She walked to the center of the room where Jake waited. A priest in golden robes began speaking in the Viridian language. Words that Jake did not understand, but that sounded ancient and important. Minseo held out her hand. Jake took it, her skin cool and smooth against his. The priest wrapped their joined hands with a cloth of silver thread. He spoke more words, and Minseo repeated them. Then she looked at Jake. Repeat after me, she said quietly in English. I pledge my service to the royal house. Jake said the words. I pledge my life to your protection. He repeated it. I pledge my honor to your name. Jake spoke the final line. The priest unwrapped their hands and stepped back. The ceremony was over. Jake Morrison was now bonded to the royal house of the Viridian Empire, sworn protector of Princess Minseo. The nobles began filing out, talking quietly among themselves. Minseo looked at Jake with an expression he could not read. Welcome to the royal household, she said. I hope neither of us regrets this. Before Jake could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. Guards rushed past, weapons drawn. Ambassador Hayes hurried over. It is the Queen Mother, he said, his face pale. She has collapsed. They think she is dying. The royal medical wing was in chaos. Doctors rushed past carrying equipment that hummed and glowed. Guards stood at every door, their weapons ready. Jake followed Princess Minseo through the corridors, trying to stay out of the way while also staying close enough to protect her. Queen Mother Sunhee lay in a bed surrounded by machines. She looked smaller than Jake remembered, fragile in a way that seemed wrong for someone who ruled an empire. Her skin had taken on a gray tinge, and her breathing was shallow. Minseo rushed to her side, taking her hand. "Grandmother," she said softly. The queen's eyes opened. She tried to smile, but it came out as more of a grimace. "Minseo, good. You are safe. What happened?" Minseo asked the head doctor, a tall Viridian with silver markings on his face. "We do not know, Your Highness. The Queen Mother's organs are failing. We have tried every treatment, but nothing works. It is as if her body is just shutting down." Jake stood back, watching. He had no medical training beyond basic first aid, but something about the situation bothered him. The symptoms seemed familiar somehow. Over the next hours, Jake watched the doctors work. They ran test after test, tried treatment after treatment. Nothing helped. The Queen Mother grew weaker. Minseo stayed by her side, holding her hand, occasionally wiping tears from her eyes. It was the first time Jake had seen her show such emotion. Lisa came to check on him around midnight. "How is she?" she asked quietly. "Not good. The doctors cannot figure out what is wrong." Jake rubbed his face. "Lisa, you trained as a medic before you joined security, right?" "Right. 3 years. Why? Can you look at something for me?" He pulled up the medical reports on a nearby display. The Viridian writing meant nothing to him. But Lisa had been studying their language. Lisa read through the reports, frowning. These symptoms. The organ failure. The way her immune system is breaking down. It reminds me of something. What? Heavy metal poisoning. We saw cases of it back on Earth from contaminated water supplies. But that does not make sense. Viridian physiology is different from human. Jake felt something click in his mind. What if it is not that different? What if someone poisoned her with something that acts like heavy metals in Viridian biology? Lisa stared at him. That would require knowledge of both human medicine and Viridian biology, and access to the Queen Mother over a long period. This is not something that happens overnight. They looked at each other. "We need to tell someone," Lisa said. Jake walked over to where Minseo sat with her grandmother. "Your Highness, can I speak with you privately?" Minseo looked up, her eyes red. "Now is not the time. It is about the Queen Mother's illness. I think I might know what is causing it." That got her attention. She stood and followed him to a corner of the room. Lisa joined them, bringing up the medical data on a portable display. "You are a security officer, not a doctor," Minseo said. "What could you possibly know that our physicians do not? Your doctors are looking for Viridian diseases and conditions. They are not looking for something designed to look natural while actually being poison." Jake nodded to Lisa, who began explaining the symptoms and how they matched human cases of heavy metal poisoning. Minseo listened, her expression growing colder. "You are saying someone poisoned my grandmother?" "We think so. But we would need your doctors to test for it specifically. They have been looking for natural causes, not deliberate poisoning. And if you are wrong, then we wasted some time. But if we are right, we might be able to save her." Minseo was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned and walked to the head doctor. Jake could not hear what she said, but the doctor's expression went from skeptical to shocked. He began barking orders to his staff. 2 hours later, they had confirmation. The Queen Mother had been poisoned with a compound designed specifically for Viridian biology. It mimicked natural organ failure while slowly killing her. She had been ingesting small amounts for months, maybe longer. "Who could do this?" Minseo asked. She stood in a private room with Jake, Lisa, and Ambassador Hayes. "Who would have access to my grandmother's food and drink over such a long period?" Quote, "Someone in the palace," Hayes said. "Someone with high-level access and knowledge of both chemistry and Viridian biology. The same people who tried to kill you," Jake added. "This is not random. Someone wants your family line eliminated. Minseo's hands clenched into fists. My mother died 3 years ago. They said it was an accident, a malfunction in her personal ship. But if they have been planning this for years, we need to find out who is behind it, Lisa said. And we need to do it fast. If they know the poisoning has been discovered, they might try something more direct. Minseo looked at Jake. Can your people help? Your human methods of investigation might catch things my own security would miss. We will do everything we can, Hayes promised. The investigation began immediately. Kevin joined them, bringing his experience in intelligence work. Together with Viridian security officers who were loyal to the Queen, they began piecing together the conspiracy. The poison had been delivered through a special tea that only the Queen Mother drank. The tea came from a specific supplier, a merchant house that had served the royal family for generations, but recent deliveries had been tampered with. The merchant house claimed ignorance, but their records showed unusual payments from an anonymous source. Following the money led them to a network of noble houses who opposed the trade agreements with humanity and other younger races. They believed the Viridian Empire should remain isolated, pure, and untainted by lesser species. Duke Karseth, the security chief said, pointing to a name that appeared repeatedly in the financial records. He has been vocal about his opposition to contact with humans, but he is powerful, with connections throughout the court. Can we arrest him? Minseo asked. Not without more proof. His position protects him. We need direct evidence linking him to the poisoning. Jake studied the information they had gathered. The assassins who attacked the princess. Did any of them survive? One. He is in a secure cell, but he has not said anything. Can I talk to him? The Viridian security chief looked skeptical. What makes you think he will talk to a human? 1. Maybe that is exactly why he will talk. I am an outsider. I have no stake in Viridian politics. And I saved the princess's life, which might count for something. Minseo nodded. Let him try. The prisoner was being held deep in the palace dungeons. Jake had not known the Viridians still had dungeons. But apparently some traditions never died. The cell was clean but bare, with walls that seemed to absorb sound. The prisoner sat on a simple bench, his hands bound with energy restraints. Jake entered alone. The prisoner looked up, surprise crossing his face. A human? My name is Jake Morrison. I am the one who shot you during the attack on Princess Minseo. Then you are the one I have to thank for my leg wound. The prisoner's voice was bitter. You are lucky I only hit your leg. I could have killed you. Jake sat down on the floor across from the cell, keeping his posture relaxed. Why did you do it? Why try to kill the princess? Because she is going to destroy us, the whole royal family. They want to let humans and other inferior races pollute our empire. They want to mix with lesser beings and corrupt our bloodlines. So you tried to murder her. I tried to save my people. The prisoner leaned forward. You cannot understand. Your species just crawled out of your gravity well. We have been great for 10,000 years. We do not need you. We do not want you. We do not want you. And the Queen Mother? Did you poison her too? Eh? The prisoner's eyes widened. I do not know what you are talking about. Oh, she is dying. Poisoned over months with a compound designed to look like natural organ failure. But we figured it out. Jake watched the prisoner's face carefully. Whoever is behind this is desperate. First the Queen, then the princess. They want to wipe out the direct royal line. If the Queen dies, it is the will of fate, the prisoner said, but his voice shook. Who is giving the orders? Is it Duke Karseth? I will say nothing more to you, human. Jake stood. You do not have to. Your face told me everything I needed to know. You are surprised the Queen was poisoned, which means the assassins and the poisoners are working separately. Someone is coordinating all of this, keeping different groups in the dark about each other's actions. That is how you control a conspiracy. He left the prisoner staring after him. When Jake reported back, Minseo looked exhausted but determined. My grandmother is responding to treatment. The human antidotes for heavy metal poisoning are working. She will live. That is good news, Jake said. But it also means whoever did this knows we have discovered their plan. They will be desperate now. She was right. 2 days later, the Queen Mother was strong enough to sit up and speak. She called Minseo to her bedside. Jake waited outside, but he could hear raised voices through the door. When Minseo emerged, her face was pale. My grandmother is abdicating. She is naming me as her successor. But you said she is recovering, Hayes protested. She is. But she says the Empire needs new leadership. Someone who can bridge the gap between our old ways and the new reality of the galaxy. Minseo looked at Jake. She says you saving my life and then saving hers proves that humans have value beyond what our nobles want to admit. She wants me to continue that change. You will be queen, Lisa said softly. In 1 week, there will be a coronation ceremony. Minseo's hands were shaking. I am not ready for this. Your grandmother thinks you are, Jake said. That counts for something. Over the next days, preparations for the coronation began. But so did the political pressure. Nobles lined up to speak with Minseo, many of them demanding that she remove Jake from her household before taking the throne. A queen's consort was a position of power and influence, they argued. It could not be held by a human. Jake found Minseo standing on a balcony late one night, looking out over the city. You should be sleeping, he said. I cannot sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see all the ways this could go wrong. She turned to him. They want me to send you away. I know. It would be easier if I did. Politically, it would solve many problems. Then do it. I will go back to the horizon. We can say the bond is fulfilled from a distance. She was quiet for a long moment. Is that what you want? Jake thought about it. In the time since the bonding ceremony, he had gotten to know Minseo better. She was smart and funny when she let herself relax. She cared deeply about her people and took her responsibilities seriously. She was also terrified of failing them. What I want does not matter, he said. You are about to become queen. You need to do what is best for your empire. And if what is best is having you here. Your perspective, your different way of seeing problems. You saved my grandmother because you thought differently than our doctors. She looked at him. I do not want you to go. Before Jake could respond, alarms began blaring. Guards rushed past them. Ambassador Hayes came running onto the balcony. We have a problem, he said. Our intelligence intercepted communications. Duke Karseth is planning a military coup. He is going to strike during the coronation ceremony. The war room in the palace was packed with military commanders and security chiefs. Holographic displays showed ship positions, troop movements, and communication intercepts. Queen Mother Sun He sat in a chair at the head of the table, still weak but refusing to stay in bed. Minseo stood beside her, listening to the reports with a face like stone. Duke Karseth has secured the loyalty of 2 battle fleets, Admiral Jiwoo said, pointing to the displays. The 3rd and 7th. Combined, they have enough firepower to overwhelm our orbital defenses. When will they strike? Sun He asked. During the Festival of Stars, the night before the coronation. Security will be relaxed for the celebrations. They are counting on us following tradition. Then we break tradition, Minseo said. Cancel the festival. Put the fleet on high alert. If we do that without proof, we show weakness, another commander argued. The Duke will claim we are paranoid and afraid of our own nobles. It could turn neutral houses against us. Jake listened from the back of the room. He was not supposed to be there, but Minseo had insisted. Hayes stood beside him, along with Lisa and Kevin. What do you think? Minseo asked, looking at Jake. Every Viridian in the room turned to stare. A few looked offended that a human was being consulted on military matters. I think you are looking at this wrong, Jake said. You are trying to meet their military force with your own military force. But you do not have the ships to match them. And mobilizing your fleet will tip them off. What would you suggest, human? Admiral Jiwoo asked. The title was not meant kindly. Use their expectations against them. They think you will react predictably, following Viridian military doctrine. Do something they are not ready for. Like what? Jake looked at Ambassador Hayes. How many human ships are in this system right now? The Horizon and 2 escort frigates. Why? Because Viridian rebels will be ready to fight Viridian ships. They will not be ready to fight humans. The room erupted in protests. Human ships are inferior, one commander said. They would be destroyed in minutes. Maybe in a straight fight, Jake agreed. But who said anything about fighting fair? Queen Mother Sun He raised a hand for silence. Explain. Jake walked to the display. Human ships use different technology. Kinetic weapons instead of energy weapons. Different propulsion systems. Different tactics. We do not have the firepower to take on battle cruisers head-to-head, but we can harass them, distract them, make them divide their attention. Like insects biting a large animal, Kevin added. Annoying and hard to swat. While they are distracted by the human ships, your loyal fleet hits them from another angle, Jake continued. And on the ground, we do the same thing. The Duke will expect formal military response to any attack on the palace. Give him something unexpected instead. Admiral Ji Woo studied the displays. It is insane. It might work, Sun He said quietly. And it is better than our current options. The planning began. Human and Viridian officers worked together, combining their very different approaches to warfare. Jake found himself in strategy sessions, explaining human small unit tactics and unconventional warfare. Some Viridian officers were openly hostile, but others listened with growing interest. Your people fight dirty, one young commander said. It was not entirely a compliment. We fight to win, Jake replied. Honor does not matter much when you are dead. 2 days before the coronation, Queen Mother Sun He called Min Seo and Jake to her private chambers. She looked better, color returning to her face. But Jake could see the weariness in her eyes. Sit, she commanded. They sat. Min Seo, you will make a good queen. Better than I was at your age. Maybe better than I am now. Sun He smiled. You are willing to listen to voices I would have ignored, to see value in places I would have looked past. Grandmother, let me finish. I am abdicating not just because of my health, but because I see clearly now what I refused to see before. Our empire has grown stagnant. We are so proud of our history that we have stopped building our future. You understand this. You are ready to lead us forward. She turned to Jake. And you, human, you saved my granddaughter and then saved me. Not for reward or recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. That kind of simple morality is rarer than you might think, especially in the halls of power. I was just doing my job, Your Majesty. No. Your job was to protect your ambassador, not to throw yourself over an alien princess you barely knew. Not to question our doctors when they were missing the obvious. You did those things because of who you are. She leaned forward. The nobles want Min Seo to remove you from her household before the coronation. They say a human cannot be consort to a Viridian queen. I know, Jake said. I have offered to leave. And have you agreed to this, Min Seo? Min Seo looked at her grandmother, then at Jake. I do not want him to go. But I do not want to divide the empire before I have even been crowned. Then you must make a choice. And you must make it publicly, so that everyone understands where you stand. Sun He stood, moving to the window. Power is not just military strength or political influence. It is the ability to make hard choices and stand by them. If you back down now, they will push you to back down on everything. The night before the coronation, Jake stood in his quarters, looking at his old security uniform. It felt like a lifetime ago that he had worn it, nervous about meeting alien royalty. Now he was bonded to the royal house and about to help defend it against a coup. Lisa knocked and entered. How are you holding up? Wondering how I got here? You jumped in front of a plasma bolt. Everything else followed from that. She sat on the edge of his bed. Are you scared about tomorrow? Terrified. You? Same, but we trained for this. Not the aliens and the palace part, but the fighting part. We know how to do that. Kevin joined them a few minutes later. The three of them sat together, checking weapons and going over the plan one more time. It felt good, Jake thought, to be with people who understood him. Tomorrow Min Seo would be crowned, and everything would change. The coronation ceremony began at dawn. The grand hall was even more magnificent than during the reception, filled with flowers and banners, and more nobles than Jake could count. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy attended, watching as the Viridian Empire crowned a new ruler. Min Seo walked down the center aisle wearing robes that seemed to be made of light itself. Her face was calm, but Jake, standing among her household guards, could see the tension in her shoulders. The crown that had floated above her grandmother's head now waited on a cushion at the altar. The ceremony was long and filled with rituals Jake did not understand. But when the high priest placed the crown above Min Seo's head and she rose as queen, Jake felt something shift. She looked different somehow, more solid, more real, like she had grown into a role she was always meant to fill. Queen Min Seo of the Viridian Empire, the priest announced. Long may she reign. The hall erupted in cheers. Min Seo turned to face her people, and for a moment, she caught Jake's eye. Then she began to speak. I accept this crown with humility and determination. My grandmother built this empire into a power respected across the galaxy. I intend to honor her legacy by ensuring our empire not only survives, but thrives for the next 10,000 years. The crowd cheered again. Min Seo raised her hand for silence. But to thrive, we must change. We must recognize that strength comes not just from our own might, but from the alliances we build and the friendships we forge. We must be willing to learn from others, even those we once dismissed as lesser. Some of the cheering died down. Nobles looked at each other uncertainly. 3 weeks ago, assassins tried to kill me. A human security officer, Jake Morrison, saved my life at risk of his own. By our ancient law, I offered him a place in my household. Today, as your queen, I make a different offer. Min Seo walked down from the altar. The crowd parted as she moved through them, heading straight for Jake. He stood frozen, very aware that thousands of eyes were watching. Jake Morrison, Min Seo said, her voice carrying through the hall. You have served as my sworn protector with honor and loyalty. You helped save my grandmother's life. You have shown wisdom and courage that belie your years and your species. She reached out her hand. Jake took it, having no idea what was happening. By the power vested in me as Queen of the Viridian Empire, I claim you. Not as a servant or a guard, but as my consort and partner. I bind you to me by my royal decree, forever and without condition. The hall went dead silent. Jake heard someone gasp. Ambassador Hayes looked like he might faint. Do you accept this claim? Min Seo asked quietly, just for Jake to hear. Jake thought about everything that had happened. The attack, the bonding, the investigation, the upcoming battle. He thought about Min Seo, this alien woman who had gone from stranger to something more in just a few short weeks. He thought about the look in her eyes, asking him to take this leap with her. I accept, he said. Min Seo smiled, the first genuine smile he had seen from her all day. She turned back to the crowd. Let it be known throughout the empire. Jake Morrison is my chosen consort, claimed by my hand and sealed by my word. Anyone who challenges this, challenges me directly. The implications rippled through the hall. Some nobles looked outraged. Others seemed thoughtful. A few even looked approving. But everyone understood the message. Queen Min Seo had made her choice, and she would not be moved. The ceremony concluded with more rituals and speeches, but Jake barely heard them. He stood beside the queen, his hand still in hers, and tried to process what had just happened. As the crowds filed out, Min Seo pulled Jake aside into a private room. I am sorry I did not warn you. I needed your reaction to be genuine. You claimed me in front of the entire galaxy. Yes, and now they know I will not be pushed around or controlled. They know I mean what I say about change and alliance. She squeezed his hand. I hope you do not regret accepting. Quote, Ask me again after we survive tonight. The coup, I have not forgotten. Her expression hardened. They will come during the celebration. Are your people ready? As ready as we can be. Mincio nodded. Then, we wait. And when they strike, we show them what happens when they underestimate a human and his queen. As night fell over the capital, the Festival of Stars began. Lights filled the sky, music played in the streets, and crowds celebrated their new queen. In the palace, guards took up positions that looked casual, but were carefully planned. Human and Viridian forces coordinated in silence. Jake stood on a balcony with Minseo, watching the celebration. Lisa's voice came through his earpiece. Sensors are picking up movement in orbit. Multiple ships dropping out of faster than light. It is starting. Jake looked at Minseo. She nodded once, her face calm but her eyes fierce. Then let us show them what we are made of, she said. In the distance, the first explosions lit up the night sky. The rebel ships appeared in orbit like falling stars. 2 full battle fleets, their weapons charging and shields glowing. On the palace balcony, Jake watched the lights bloom across the sky as Admiral Ji Woo's voice crackled through every communication channel. All loyal forces, engage the enemy. Human ships, execute, Plan Delta. 3 small dots broke from the civilian traffic patterns. The Horizon and her 2 escort frigates looked tiny compared to the massive Viridian battlecruisers. But they moved fast, accelerating on vectors that made no sense to traditional Viridian tactics. What are they doing? Mincio asked, watching the tactical display Jake had pulled up on a portable unit. Drawing fire. Making themselves targets. Jake felt his stomach twist as he watched the human ships dart between the rebel fleet, firing kinetic rounds that sparked against energy shields. They are making the rebels waste ammunition on hard-to-hit targets. The rebel fleets split their attention, trying to swat the annoying human ships while also engaging the loyal Viridian forces. It was working. The human ships were too small and too fast to hit easily, and their unpredictable movements kept the rebels off balance. Your Majesty. A guard called from the doorway. We are detecting troop transports entering the atmosphere. Ground assault incoming. How many? At least 3 battalions. They will land within the hour. Mincio looked at Jake. This is it. We need to get you to the secure bunker. No. My people need to see me standing firm. I will not hide while others fight for my crown. She turned to the guard. Activate all defense systems. Tell Commander Hayes to execute the ground plan. Jake had argued against this part. The plan called for Mincio to remain visible, to broadcast to the Empire that she was not afraid. It made her a target, but she had insisted. A queen who hid sent the wrong message. The first transport ships landed in the palace gardens. Rebel soldiers poured out, wearing heavy armor and carrying weapons designed to cut through palace defenses. They moved with military precision, advancing on the main building in coordinated waves. Then they hit the first surprise. Human soldiers, working with Viridian royal guards, had set up ambush points throughout the gardens. They did not fight in neat lines or follow predictable patterns. They used hit-and-run tactics, firing from cover and then disappearing before the rebels could respond. Explosive traps detonated in places the rebels had not checked, because Viridian forces never used such crude weapons. They are confused, Kevin reported from his position near the East Garden. They keep trying to set up formal firing lines, but we hit them and fade before they can organize. More transports landed. The rebels had numbers on their side, pushing forward despite casualties. They reached the palace walls and began cutting through with plasma torches. Jake could hear the sounds of battle getting closer. Second wave incoming, Lisa called out. They are trying to flank through the lower courtyards. Jake grabbed his weapon, a human rifle that felt much better in his hands than the Viridian plasma pistol. Stay here, he told Mincio. The guards will protect you. Where are you going? To do my job. He ran toward the sound of fighting. The lower courtyard was a war zone. Rebel soldiers advanced through ornate archways while royal guards fired back from defensive positions. Bodies lay scattered across the decorative tiles. Jake took cover behind a fountain and began picking targets. The human rifle made a sharp crack with each shot, different from the hum of energy weapons. The rebels were not ready for it. Their shields were calibrated against plasma and lasers, not solid metal moving at high velocity. Jake dropped 3 rebels before they even realized where the shots were coming from. "Humans in the courtyard," someone yelled. A group of rebels turned toward Jake, weapons raised. He rolled behind a pillar as plasma fire scorched the stone. Kevin appeared on the other side of the courtyard, firing from a different angle. The rebels tried to split their attention and paid for it as royal guards advanced from the center. "Push them back," Jake yelled. "Do not let them consolidate." The battle for the courtyard lasted 10 brutal minutes. When it was over, the rebels retreated, leaving dozens of their dead behind. Jake helped pull wounded guards to safety, his hands shaking from adrenaline. "Status report," he called into his communicator. "East Garden is secure," Lisa responded. "We took casualties but held the line. West entrance is under heavy assault," another voice reported. "We need reinforcements." "On my way," Jake said. The fighting spread throughout the palace complex. Rebels pushed hard, trying to reach the throne room where Mincio had positioned herself. Every corridor became a battlefield. Jake and his team moved through the palace like ghosts, hitting the rebels from unexpected angles and then vanishing. In orbit, the battle was reaching its peak. The human ships had taken damage but were still fighting, their hit-and-run attacks forcing the rebel fleet to spread out. Admiral Ji Woo's forces pressed the advantage, concentrating fire on isolated rebel ships. Then Duke Karseth made his move. "We have a problem," Ambassador Hayes called over the communication network. A stealth ship just penetrated palace defenses. Small team heading straight for the throne room. Jake's blood went cold. How many? 12, maybe 15. Elite troops. They are cutting through our people like they are not even there. Jake ran for the throne room. His legs burned and his lungs ached, but he pushed harder. He had to reach Mincio before they did. The throne room guards were already fighting when Jake arrived. Half of them were down, and the rest were being pushed back by soldiers in black armor that seemed to absorb weapon fire. At the center of the group, giving orders, was Duke Karseth himself. "Protect the Queen," Jake shouted, raising his rifle. The Duke turned toward him, and Jake saw contempt in his eyes. "The human pet. How appropriate that you will die trying to protect your mistress." "Funny," Jake said, taking aim. "I was thinking the same thing about you." He fired. The Duke's personal shield flared, absorbing the bullet. The Duke laughed and drew a massive energy blade that crackled with power. "You cannot win, human. I am wearing the finest armor our technology can produce. I am trained in combat arts your species has not even dreamed of. You are nothing." Jake ejected his empty magazine and slammed in a new one. "Maybe, but nothing has a way of surprising people." The Duke charged, moving with speed that seemed impossible for someone in heavy armor. Jake dove to the side, firing as he rolled. The bullets sparked off the armor but did not penetrate. The Duke's blade came down where Jake had been, cutting through marble like it was paper. Jake scrambled behind a pillar. His mind raced, analyzing the armor, looking for weaknesses. The Duke was right. In a straight fight, Jake would lose in seconds. So he would not fight straight. The throne room was full of art and architecture, beautiful and old. Jake used it. He shot out a window, letting smoke from the fires outside pour in. He knocked over a statue, forcing the Duke to jump over it. He stayed mobile, never letting the Duke pin him down. "Stand and fight!" the Duke roared. "Why? You are the one who is supposed to be honorable." Jake fired again, this time aiming not at the Duke, but at a chandelier above him. The crystal structure came crashing down. The Duke's shield absorbed the impact, but the distraction cost him a second. Jake used that second to close the distance. He dropped his rifle and pulled a knife. A simple human blade. The Duke swung his energy sword in a wide arc. Jake ducked under it and drove his knife into the joint at the Duke's knee, where the armor had to flex. The Duke screamed and stumbled. His shield did not extend to the armor joints. They had to be vulnerable to allow movement. Jake had found his opening. The fight became brutal and close. Every time the Duke tried to use his superior reach and power, Jake got inside his guard and attacked the weak points. Elbow joints, hip joints, the seal at the neck. It was not elegant or honorable. It was effective. The Duke's blade caught Jake across the ribs, burning through his uniform and searing his skin. Pain exploded through him. But he ignored it. He grabbed the Duke's sword arm at the wrist joint and drove his knife in, again and again, until something inside the armor broke. The Duke's blade fell from his hand. Jake kicked it away and put his knife to the Duke's throat, right where the armor seal had cracked from his repeated attacks. "Yield," Jake said, breathing hard. The Duke stared at him with pure hatred. "You are human. You are nothing. I am the Queen's consort. I am her sworn protector. And you just lost." Royal guards swarmed the remaining elite soldiers. The rebellion was falling apart. In orbit, the rebel fleet was breaking formation as ships realized their cause was lost. On the ground, rebel soldiers were surrendering or retreating. Mincio appeared from behind her throne, where she had taken cover. She looked at Jake, covered in blood and smoke, holding a knife to the Duke's throat. And she smiled. "Well done, my consort." Jake handed the Duke over to the guards and nearly collapsed. The pain from his ribs finally caught up with him. Mincio caught him. Surprisingly strong for someone so slim. "We need medical attention here," she called. "I am fine," Jake lied. "You are injured and stubborn. Two qualities I am beginning to realize define you." The battle ended as the sun rose. Rebel forces surrendered throughout the capital. The fleet in orbit retreated or was destroyed. Duke Karseth and his co-conspirators were taken to secure cells. Casualty reports came in, and Jake felt sick at the numbers. Good people had died tonight, but the coup had failed. 3 days later, Jake stood in the throne room again. This time there was no battle, just a formal ceremony. The hall was filled with nobles and ambassadors, watching as Queen Mincio addressed her empire. "The conspiracy against the royal house has been crushed. Those who sought to tear us apart through violence and treachery will face justice. But we will not let their hatred define us." She gestured to where Jake stood with the human delegation. "Humans fought alongside our loyal forces. They brought tactics and perspectives we had not considered. They shed blood defending our crown. And my consort, Jake Morrison, personally captured the leader of the rebellion." Some nobles still looked unhappy, but they could not argue with results. The humans had proven their worth in the most definitive way possible. From this day forward, the Viridian Empire embraces a new era. We will work with humanity and other younger species not as a favor, but as equals. We will combine our ancient knowledge with their fresh ideas. Together, we will build something greater than any of us could alone. The crowd applauded. It was not universal enthusiasm, but it was acceptance. Change had come to the Viridian Empire, whether everyone liked it or not. Later, Jake found himself alone with Mincio in her private gardens. The same gardens where rebels had landed just days before. Now they were peaceful. The damage already being repaired. "Do you regret it?" Mincio asked. "Everything that has happened since you saved my life?" Jake thought about it. He had left behind his old life, his ship, his simple role as a security officer. He had been shot at, burned, nearly killed multiple times. He was bonded to an alien queen and would spend the rest of his life in a world that was not his own. "No," he said, "I do not regret it." "Why not?" "Because it was the right thing to do. All of it. From saving you in the first place to standing with you against the coup. Sometimes, doing the right thing is complicated and scary. But that does not make it less right." Mincio took his hand. "In our culture, when a queen claims someone, it is not just a political act. It is a declaration that two souls are bound together by choice and honor. I chose you not because of politics or obligation, but because you showed me what real courage looks like. I was just doing my job." "No. Your job was to protect your ambassador. You went far beyond that." She moved closer to him. You taught me that strength is not about how advanced your technology is, or how old your civilization is. It is about standing up when it matters, helping those who need it, and never backing down from what you believe is right. Jake looked out over the gardens, toward the city beyond. He could see ships in the sky, both Viridian and human, flying together on joint patrols. Representatives from across the galaxy were arriving daily, eager to establish relations with the Viridian Empire's new queen. What happens now? He asked. Now we build the future. You and I. Together. Minseo smiled. The humans have a saying, I think. Something about small actions having large consequences? The butterfly effect. The idea that small changes can lead to big results. Yes, you saved one princess in one moment. That choice changed the course of an empire. She squeezed his hand. I wonder what other changes we will make together. 6 months later, Jake stood with Minseo at the launch ceremony for the first joint human Viridian exploration vessel. The ship was beautiful, combining the elegant lines of Viridian design with human engineering innovations. It would explore regions of space neither species had reached alone. Ambassador Hayes had joined them, looking proud. I never imagined when we came here for a simple trade agreement that we would end up with a full alliance. And you, he said to Jake. I definitely never imagined you would end up as royal consort. Neither did I, Jake admitted. Lisa and Kevin were taking positions on the new ship as part of the joint crew. They would leave in a week. Jake would miss them, but he was proud too. They were proof that humans and Viridians could work together as equals. Speech time. Minseo whispered to him. Ready? Not really. Good. Neither am I. We will be nervous together. They walked to the platform where dignitaries from dozens of species waited. Minseo spoke first, talking about cooperation and shared goals. Then she introduced Jake. He kept it simple. 6 months ago, I was a security officer who thought his biggest challenge would be remembering which fork to use at a formal dinner. Then I met a princess who needed help, and I did what anyone should do. I helped her. Everything that came after, all these changes and alliances, started from that one simple choice. He looked at the crowd, at the mix of humans and aliens listening to him. We all have those moments. Times when we can choose to help, or to look away. To take a risk, or to play it safe. The choice we make defines who we are. I chose to help, and it changed my life. I hope we all keep making that choice, every day, for everyone we meet. The applause was genuine. As they left the stage, Minseo leaned close to him. You are getting better at speeches. I have a good teacher. That night, as they stood on their private balcony looking at the stars, Minseo asked him one more time, Do you miss Earth? Your old life? Jake thought about it honestly. Sometimes, I miss the simple things. Coffee that tastes right. Grass under my feet. But I do not regret being here. Because it was the right thing to do? Because it led me to you. Minseo smiled, and in that moment, with the stars above them and the future ahead, Jake knew he had found exactly where he belonged. He had defended an alien princess and been claimed by a queen. It was not the life he had planned, but it was the life he had chosen, and he would choose it again, every single time.